The British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Good afternoon. My name is Vivek Nakra, and here are your news updates to 3 o'clock. In the Coast Plan announcement this morning, John Rustad, BC Conservative Party leader, refers again to his plan to remove the carbon tax. Reporter Grace Miller has more on what experts are saying about Rustad's pledge.
John Rustad announced a plan for $3 billion in annual tax relief as part of his cost plan. Rustad also made reference to his plan to remove the BC carbon tax. Samit Gulati, a PhD associate professor at UBC with an expertise in the carbon tax, says he's not sure if voters will understand what this will look like if implemented.
If BC does get rid of the carbon tax, the federal tax comes in, and it's going to be exactly the same. It may be a little bit better because it actually gives money back to individuals, unlike the NDP increase in taxes, which doesn't. So I think most people don't realize that.
The BC Green Party and BC NDP have not yet publicly responded to this announcement. I'm Grace Miller with BCIT's The Crow.
Now we are joined by Grace Miller. Grace, what are some of the other notable points in the Coast Plan that Conservative Party announced today?
Thank you so much for having me, Vivek. Some of the other notes that leader of the Conservative Party, John Rustad, mentioned were that he has a $3 billion plan, as I mentioned, that would be fulfilled by $1.5 billion in the first year it's fully implemented, and then increasing from there. He also mentioned that he pledges to balance the budget by the end of his second term if he were to hold office. And he said that he'll be able to do this by adding $2.3 billion in spending.
Interesting. Have any of the other parties responded to this announcement yet?
Not yet. However, David Eby, the leader of the BC NDP party, and Sonia Furstenau, the leader of the BC Green Party, have publicly come out against Rustad's rebates.
Did Sumit Gulati have anything else to add in response to Rustad's announcement?
Yes, he added, in addition to him noting that some people might not understand that getting rid of the carbon tax wouldn't be a full stop to the carbon tax for BC residents, that he wishes that people had a little bit more time to look into what these pledges actually mean and were a little bit more skeptical. As he puts it, when somebody's saying things like, I can just get rid of your taxes, it's not always that simple, and there's usually something behind it. It's more complicated than that.
Thanks, Grace.
Thank you, Vivek.
Alberta's federal government has launched a campaign targeting the federal government's income emission cap for the oil and gas sector. Premier Daniel Smith says that it is a de facto production cap that would kill jobs and stifle the economy. The province's $7 million campaign also says that the federal regulations might make some changes later this year. The price for groceries, gas, and all other life's necessities is expected to go up. Corrective measures are underway to address a toxic climate of fear and intimidation at a French-language Montreal primary school in Quebec. Quebec's education department has appointed 2 monitors at Bedford School. They started working today and have to report back by 30th November. The measures follow a report made last week saying that there was a dominant clan of teachers who imposed a very strict rule over students. October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. According to Statistics Canada, 1 in 3 Canadians with disabilities had unmet workplace accommodations in 2022. Our reporter Isabella Calisi talks with a local Paralympian about his struggles in the workforce.
Nathan Clement is a medal-winning Paralympic bicyclist and swimmer. He had a stroke at the age of 2, which caused him to lose mobility on one side of his body. He finds a lot of companies see disabilities as a deterrent to hire somebody, and one of the only ways he's able to break that barrier is through a strong work ethic.
And that's a tough thing for so many people who might just be doing their first job. They might be 15, 16, 17 years old, or they just recently had an accident or recently had an injury. They're trying to get back into the workforce. That's a standard, and that's something that no one should ever be told, and that's something that no one should ever have to go through.
Clement says when people with disabilities are added to the workplace, it's a lesson for everyone about how to adapt to the task at hand. Isabel Glacy, BCIT's The Crow.
A 5-year-old girl is dead after a overturned on a lake west of Edmonton. RCMP say they received a report of capsized watercraft in Wabamu Lake near the provincial campground just before 3 p.m. on Sunday. The girl was pulled from the water by the bystanders, but despite the life-saving efforts by emergency officials, she was pronounced dead at the scene. A 35-year-old woman was also pulled from the water. Saskatchewan New Democrat leader Carla Beck says she would hire 800 new frontline workers over 4 years if her party wins the election on October 28th. She says those positions will be filled by staff in areas that are of highest need. NDP government would spend $1.1 billion more on the healthcare, thus using it for hiring and improving working conditions. Ottawa expelled 6 Indian diplomats after the RCMP said they believe Indian agents played a role in violent crimes. American officials have opted against condemning New Delhi's response to explosive accusations. Veena Najibullah, vice president for the Asia Pacific Foundation, says Ottawa needs its peer countries to push New Delhi to participate in Canadian investigations.
In order for Canada at this stage to have any kind of cooperation from India and seek accountability for what has happened, we would need India to feel some pressure. We would need India to feel some reason to cooperate. And obviously, given today's developments, it's hard to imagine India cooperating at this stage voluntarily.
Taylor Swift's 6 Toronto concert dates is expected to inject hundreds of millions of dollars into the city's economy. Destination Toronto says it expects $152 million in direct spending associated with the Eras Tour's stint in the city next month. It is expected to grow into a $282 million economic impact as the money continues to circulate. The model that the organization used includes predictions about spending on hotels, dining, shopping, and other local fare. The US sent a letter to Israel warning it risks losing American weapons funding unless it allows far more humanitarian aids into Gaza. Sagar Meghani from Associated Press tells what all things are mentioned in the letter.
The letter was not meant as a threat.
But rather, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby says it was meant to reiterate a sense of U.S. urgency
About the need for an increase, a dramatic increase in humanitarian assistance.
The U.S. is giving Israel 30 days to, among other things, speed the aid flow, which had ramped up after a similar letter in April. But State Department spokesman Matthew Miller says the flow has dropped sharply.
By over 50% from where it was at its peak.
The letter comes amid growing U.S. frustration as Israel has defied repeated requests to scale back operations against Hamas. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A new pair of giant pandas have landed in the US and they will be transported to the National Zoo in Washington. Reporter Charles Ledem has more on what contributions are being made to protect the global biodiversity.
11 months after the zoo sent 3 wildly popular pandas back to China, a new pair of 3-year-old giant pandas, Bao Li and Qing Bao, have arrived at Dulles International Airport in suburban Virginia. A statement from the China Wildlife Conservation Association reads, "Food prepared for the trip includes cornbread, bamboo and carrots, as well as water and medicine." Adding, the partnership between China and the US will make new contributions in protecting global biodiversity and enhance the friendship of the people from the two nations. It's unclear exactly when the bears will arrive in Washington, but there will likely be an extended quarantine period before they're introduced to the public. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The Japanese entertainment giant Toho has reached an agreement to acquire Oscar-winning animation outfits G-Kids. This deal gives Toho an established North American distributor and sales operator in G-Kids. The weather currently is cloudy with a temperature of 15 degrees Celsius. The temperature is expected to fall by the evening. It is expected to rain tomorrow, which might continue until next Monday. So don't forget your umbrellas. The Japanese entertainment giant Toho has reached an agreement to acquire Oscar-winning animation outfit G-Kids. This deal gives Toho an established North American distributor and sales operations in G-Kids. G-Kids won the Oscar for Hayao Miyazaki's The Boy and the Hero earlier this year. That was a news updates to 3 o'clock. My name is Vivek Nakra and thanks for listening to BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Good afternoon, sports fans. I'm Filip Kovacevic with your sports updates for 3:15. The Vancouver Canucks are starting a 4-game road trip tonight with a game against Tampa Bay Lightning. After losing their first 2 games after regulation time, the Canucks are out to get their first win of the season. Carolina last week was postponed due to the impact of Hurricane Milton. The fiery Calgary Flames look to continue their undefeated start to the NHL season when they welcome the Chicago Blackhawks tonight. Calgary improved to 3-0 with a 4-1 victory over their provincial rival Edmonton on Sunday. The Oilers are off to an 0-3 start and look to turn things around tonight against visiting Philadelphia. The Professional Women's Hockey League released its schedule for the second season. The Toronto Scepters are hosting the Boston Fleet, and the Montreal Victoire will be rolling out the welcome mat for the Ottawa Charge during the season opening on November 30th. The defending champion Minnesota Frost welcomes the New York Sirens the following night. Each team will be playing 30 regular season games, which went up from 24 in the league's inaugural campaign. Brad Gajou's curling team is adding some significant firepower to its roster. Today, the team based in St. John's, Newfoundland, say that Brendan Botcher will replace E.J. Harden, who recently passed away, at second. Botcher skipped Alberta to a Canadian championship in 2021. Jets acquire wide receiver Devontae Adams from Raiders, bringing him and his old teammate Aaron Rodgers back together. Now that Rodgers and Adams are finally reunited after more than 2 years of separation and 1 year of speculation, they're going to try and save the New York Jets season. The Jets acquired the disgruntled Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders on Tuesday by sending a conditional third-round pick in next year's draft that could become a second-rounder. The deal was finalized on Tuesday morning and was contingent on Adams passing his physical. The teams officially announced the trade a few hours later. Rodgers and Adams were teammates in Green Bay for 8 years before the wide receiver was traded to Las Vegas in 2022. The Super Bowl will return to Atlanta in 2028 at the home of the Falcons following a vote of approval by NFL team owners on Tuesday at the league's annual fall meeting. This is going to be the 4th time the NFL's championship game is played in Atlanta and the 2nd in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The first 2 Super Bowls held in Atlanta were at the now demolished Georgia Dome in 1994 and 2000. New Orleans will host the game after this season. Then it'll go to California for 2 years. The Philly 76ers head coach Nick Nurse talked to reporters ahead of the 2024-25 season. He says more tests need to be done before Paul George can be cleared to play.
PG was here today, got it looked at again. Everything checks out okay. They are going to do some further imaging this afternoon to see if there's anything else. But some good spirits, was here today. A number of the vets didn't practice today, coming in off a late night. But it's okay for now. We'll see what happens with the imaging.
George received his injury when his knee buckled on a defensive play in the second quarter of yesterday's game against the Atlanta Hawks. He scored 8 points in 12 minutes, and the game ended with a 104-89 victory. An annual report says the rising number of injuries to top soccer players comes at the cost of nearly $800 million across Europe's leading leagues last season. At this point, when there are growing concerns about the number of games players are being asked to play. And it highlights a greater strain on clubs as a result of the newly expanded Club World Cup, which is being staged in America next year. The cost of the injuries was based on the reported salaries of the players concerned. Those were your sports headlines for 3:15. I'm Filip Kovacevic with BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Christine Sinclair is considered the most successful soccer player that's ever played for Canada. She's retiring next month with her final professional game playing tonight. But after becoming the highest scoring player in the world with 185 international goals, I can't help but feel she still has a few more years of great plays left. Since her debut in 2000 at 16 years old, Christine Sinclair competed in 4 Olympic Games, receiving gold at the 2020 Olympics at the age of 36. Most professional athletes would retire at this point, but in the same year she won her gold medal, she got the Bobby Rosenfeld Award as Canada's Female Athlete of the Year for the second time. She was also named Canadian Player of the Decade from 2010 to 2019. I'm Filip Kovacevic, and that was your sports comment for BCIT's The Crow.